continue to bless us. And I'd like to open this up with the circumstances that we as a people are facing, that this book makes it clear that I like to go to Isaiah chapter 7, and I like to read at verse, but there's a part of it I would like to, but you can read all of it, verse 9. Verse 9.
And the head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is Remaliah's son. If ye will not believe, surely ye shall not be established.
That's right. It says, if you will not believe, you will surely not be established. And therefore, how can we believe if those persons that we set before us has done mischief to cause us to fall by the wayside? And who are these people? These are the leaders that we trust, as it says in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 16. It says, as it says, what we just got finished reading, if you don't believe, you will not be established. But how can we believe when, as it says in Isaiah chapter verse 9, verse 16?
For the leaders of this people cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed.
Yes, so the leaders that we depend upon cause them to go in error. And this is what we must realize in Isaiah 8, verse 20 of Isaiah. It says,
To the Lord and to the testimony, if ye speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them.
so Yahweh God is definitely explaining something of great merit to us. That is to the Lord, to the testimony, and therefore, if they speak not, because this is the establishment of us to come back as a people. And we realize that there is a difficulty in explaining it, because Yahweh God tells us that we're not going to be in our language that really represent it. If we go to Isaiah chapter 28, verse 11.
For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people.
Yes, so evidently the people he's talking to is a language that they would not be speaking, that this information will be given. It would be a stammering language because it would cause them to have a stammering speech. So I'm saying to you, it's important that we realize that we must exercise caution and diligently prayer so that we may receive the right instructions from our God. Because He is the one to bring us back. He is the one to make it clear. Because as it says in the book of Proverbs, and this is what we seek the light that can only come from one place. That light that can only come from one place. Because we know, if we read, it says in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 19, we know that we're in the midst of circumstances that brings about darkness. It said the way of the wicked is as darkness. They know not at what they stumble. So, as it says in the book of Job, the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. So we know that the wicked will bring darkness into the earth and they will begin to stumble. You understand what I'm saying? Because this is what, Their vanity and the vanities of the world, it doesn't mean that you cannot use the vanities of the world. When the vanities of the world becomes your personality and your pride and your arrogance and pomp, then you've lost the real use of the vanities of the world, is to be used and to be appreciated and to give Yahweh God glory. But when the vanities of the world are possessing everything, that when you die, you can't take this stuff with you. It doesn't mean Yahweh God is not interested in that we don't possess things. It's how we possess it. That's why he told you in the Torah, and he gave you instructions of conduct, of how to deal one with another. And therefore, these vanities of the world would not have the dominion over you if you don't embrace them as sole ownership of them, but as using them for the benefit of the enjoyment of the creation that Yahweh has put on this earth. So the wicked man is darkness, and the wicked man has the earth. So where's our light? And we go to Proverbs 6, verse 23. Proverbs 6, 23.
For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is a light.
That's right. So he said, for the commandment is a light, and the Torah, it says commandment is a lamp, and the Torah is a light. And what else it says?
And reproofs of instruction are the way of life.
That's right. See, the proof of instructions, in other words, the Torah is about instructions. And therefore, it tells us many things that we must be aware of so that we don't get caught up in these vanities. Not that we should not use the vanities of life. We should, but we should put everything in its proper place, because we know, as it says here, it says, I've seen the wicked in great power. He said, I've seen the wicked in great power. And we know that the wicked stumbles, and he stumbles because wickedness brings about darkness. But he said wickedness will have power. It didn't say power, it said great power. And spreading himself like a green bay tree. Yet he passed away, and lo, he was not. Yea, I sought him, but he could not be found. So Yahweh said that suddenly, without remedy, he will be taken away. And this is where it says, therefore shall he stumble. Therefore shall his calamity come suddenly. Suddenly shall he be broken without remedy. So Yahweh God is saying, and that is Psalm 6, verse 15. It says, he's going to be broken without remedy, without anything that would heal him. It's going to come suddenly. And that's why in Proverbs 3, verse 25, Yahweh God says, what?
Be not afraid of sudden fear, neither of the desolation of the wicked when it cometh.
That's right. See, in all her power, in all her glory that she will have, in all the circumstances that will be in her favor, she will lose it overnight. It will flee from her with all what they say that is written in this book. With all that she will put herself to have, she's going to lose it overnight. She ain't gonna know. It's gonna be so startling. That's why it says, thou art weary in the multitudes of thy counsel. They will become weary in the multitudes of their counsel, giving direction when they call their senators and representatives to give insight on how to resolve it. They will become weary. And he says here, and I'm at Isaiah chapter 47, therefore shall evil come upon thee, thou shalt not know from whence it rises, and mischief shall fall upon thee, thou shalt not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. In other words, All their preparations that they're making for things not to happen. He said, why? For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness. See, they trust in wickedness. They don't trust in no God. That's Isaiah chapter 47. I read verse 13, then I read 11, and then I read 10. And see, he has no respect of the rules and regulation that governs this planet concerning that for the benefit of all humanity. He's caught up in the vanities of the world, the things that will perish. God is not in all his thoughts. He ain't even thinking about God. God is so far removed from him that when even the thought comes upon him about God, it irritates him because he don't believe in no God. You understand what I'm saying? So therefore he perished in his own thoughts. It says this is the man that he trusts in his wealth. He don't trust in no God. What God is going to do for him is a waste of time. Therefore, when we look at him, we look at a man in total misery. A man that understands only one thing, that his circumstances and his wealth is that's why it says the rich man's strong tower is his wealth. That's why it says in Psalm 52 verse 6, lo, this is the man that made not Allahayimah his strength, but trusts in the abundance of his riches, and strengthened himself in wickedness. See, you understand? You got to understand. They trust himself, and he said what? And what does he do? And strengthen himself in wickedness. That he does these things believing that it's going to keep him strong. He does these things without a conscious believing that circumstances and those that are the leaders of the people tell them and misguide them. But Yahweh said, they come not with the law and the testimony because there's no light in them. You understand? You got to know who you are so that you may get the right truth. Who are you? If you're not an Israelite, it doesn't mean you can't read the book. It just means that the information is for Israel. That's why he said, the Shabbat is a sign between me and my son Israel. It don't say the children in Hebrew, it said my son. My son Israel. This is a relationship that the Shabbat will give to me and them, that this is a sign. That only way they can read the sign is to keep the Shabbat. And therefore, as we keep the Shabbat, we learn the sign. Because the sign becomes ingrained in our very existence that we know the purpose of keeping. We don't see it, that it's a vanity. We see it's a necessity. It's a life-giving necessity that where it said, this is not a vain thing for you, for it is your life. We're not staying in the house for any other reason because we stand in here because Yahweh God, who is God, has put forth this and told us, keep these things that we may walk through the straight and narrow path and learn the things that pertain to Yahweh God so we might grow strong. Strong in doing the things, strong in serving him. Because you cannot become weak in keeping these. The Torah tells us exactly, it is a compass, as it says here, moreover by them is thy servant warned, and in keeping of them there is great reward. In other words, Psalm 19 verse 10, he says, doing what? He says, the Torah of Yahweh is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of Yahweh is sure, making wise and simple. The statutes of Yahweh are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandments of Yahweh is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of Yahweh is clean, enduring forever. The judgment of Yahweh is true and righteous altogether. More to be desired they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey in the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is thy servant warned, and in keeping of them there is great reward. See, so Yahweh God is giving you your, he said, man, this is your warning, Israel. All you got to do, that's why he said, make this as faultless between the eyes. In other words, keep your eyes on this. Write it on your doorpost, because if you break these things willfully, if you break them, then set it in order to have repentance. You cannot, like even the prophet, there's certain transgression. When you murder a man, eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, then you got to look to be murdered. Yahweh God's going to send it right back to you because you took a life. You understand? There's one thing to accidentally do harm to somebody unknown that wasn't purposely plotted. But at the same time, armies, generals, presidents, leaders cause their people to err by the acts that they employ them to be participant in. And therefore, it causes and bring about destruction. You understand what I'm saying? And the thing about it is that we need leaders because leaders are important. But when the leaders are not sensitive to the punishment that Yahweh God will give them for misguiding the masses of people and leashing such barbaric punishment and taking their law and what governs them and using it as a whipping stick that is so torturous to the people they rule over, then that same thing will eventually, do you think that those slaves that was murdered left this plane saying to themselves, oh God, forgive them? That white master that strapped him to two horses and pulled him apart, that laid him on the ground and beat him till he died, that guy went away with such horror and bitterness in his heart because of the ill treatment. When you take and ill treat anybody, they don't go away from this earth feeling good. You done robbed them of the pleasures of the earth, that you take their lives. You done dropped bombs on people, took armies and ran in there, have sex with all the women and call them dogs, but yet still you're mating with them. If they're dogs, then how much more of a dog you are? You understand? You can't call a woman a dog and you laying up with her. You can't be no better than her. You understand? So he's given evaluation on things that he participated in that gives him a value too. He can't say that's inferior and then deal with it and he not become inferior. He's as inferior as the thing he deals with. You can't tell me that you eat inferior food and say you're a superior people. You can't eat the dung of animals and the slop of pigs and tell me you're a strong vessel. You have to become what you eat because what you eat nourishes you. And the actions of Congress and governments is just like food to the people. You acquire inferior people by the inferior actions and the things that you impose upon them through their law. How you gonna let two men marry each other? That's an inferior act. That's against nature. There's no policy even that governs that this is a right thing to do. Why could that be right? And food and actions of people and laws shows the quality of the people that institute them and then carry them out. You understand? You're going to take a man and put him in jail for killing a dog? That don't make no sense. That's the penalty. But yet still, I remember a friend was saying something to me. He said he told a cop that it was good that that cop got killed. I think it wasn't in New York. I think it was somewhere in Jersey or Brooklyn. He said because, and he said the cop got mad at him when he said that. He said, but when he explained it to him, and the way I'm gonna try to explain to you how he explained, he said, look, when that cop got killed, they did such an investigation that they caught other criminals. He said, had it been this me, they wouldn't have done the research that they did when they killed that cop. So he said they got so many of them off the street because the investigation, that's why gangsters know, don't kill a cop.
Right.
Because the investigation is more strict.
Right.
And then, and he made sense. I mean, it's bad that anybody got killed. If they did the same investigation when I got killed, they catch a lot. But when a police officer get killed, he said the helicopters come, everybody's in the area searching everywhere. But when you get killed, and when he said it and he explained it to me, and it's like I said, anybody losing their life. But he says your efforts to solve a situation when he gets murdered is not the same as when I get murdered.
Right.
So he said when that cop got murdered, it did the community well because there were so many lines of crooks that they caught, and the investigation was more in detail.
Right.
And that was heavy. That was some heavy stuff. That was heavy when he explained it to me. So I'm saying to you, we have to realize that this Torah tells us things, and we must help our children. We must insist that our children walk through life, not blindly. This Bible offers all your answers. This Bible offers all your answers. You ain't gonna get no answers from nobody else. You are the children of Israel. The description that's given, see, names change, but they given a description that fits us. And therefore, we as black people in the United States of America should walk proudly who we are. Not arrogantly, but proudly. You understand? Because we know who we are. It doesn't matter whether the world acknowledge us. We now can acknowledge ourselves by the conduct that Yahweh has put in this book that we will keep, and that is keep those things. Pesach is coming, unleavened bread is coming, so you want to keep this. You want to keep the Shabbat. The Shabbat is yours. We ain't worrying about nobody else keeping it. We worrying about, because it's a sign between Yahweh and us. So I want to encourage that and make sure that you will carry it through in your life. Because Yahweh God is God. May Yahweh bless you and keep you and strengthen you. And we will have this prayer, and we will enter into our day's lesson.